Hey guys, my name is Matimo, and today I wanted to talk about the most recent changes to the attachments in the patch that we just got. There were a lot of buffs and nerfs to some of them, and I just kind of wanted to lay the groundwork so that everyone has an understanding of these changes so that they can make an informed decision on what attachment they want to use on the battlefield. In the future, I also wanted to make a video on different combinations of attachments so that you can understand which ones work well together, why you would want to use two attachments, in certain situations. But before I do that, I think everyone needs to know what each attachment does and why you would want to use them exclusively in a certain situation. So the first attachment we're going to be looking at is the heavy barrel, and they have made some significant improvements to this attachment. The first thing they've done is to reduce the penalty for vertical recoil when you have this on your weapon. If you remember in the previous build, that if you use the heavy barrel, it would cause your gun to recoil vertically pretty significantly, and in this most recent patch, they've dialed that down a bit so that's not such a nuisance and you don't have to compensate as much for that vertical recoil. They've also added a small hip accuracy penalty. That is just because there is more weight at the end of your gun, so when you're firing from the hip, you're going to have a little bit more, or you're going to have a little bit harder time taking out your target because there's going to be a little bit more bullet spread. But one of the best things about the heavy barrel is that it increases the maximum range of a weapon. Now, this doesn't increase the minimum or maximum damage, but it will effectively make you more powerful in mid-range combat. So what it does is that if you're using an assault rifle and you're shooting at an enemy that is 50 meters out, normally if you weren't using the attachment, you would do 17 damage a shot, which is the minimum damage of the weapon. You hit your cap. But if you're using the heavy barrel and you're shooting at them now, you haven't hit your cap, you haven't hit that minimum damage of 17, you are probably doing more around 20 damage a shot, so you are effectively increasing the range of your weapon to hit harder in medium range combat. And that is one of the best things about the heavy barrel. Another great thing, and something that they significantly buffed in the most recent patch, is the aimed accuracy bonus when you are burst firing. So this is going to increase your medium to long range engagement's accuracy. Basically, when you shoot at someone, where you're aiming is where your bullets are going to land, and it's something that makes this attachment much more viable in the most recent patch. So the next attachment we're going to be looking at is the Suppressor, and this thing has gotten nerfed hard. What they've done is reduce the minimum and maximum range of a weapon when using this attachment. So basically the opposite of the heavy barrel, and what this means is that targets that are at medium distance, you're going to do less damage compared to the previous patch. It's like I said, it's completely the opposite of the heavy barrel, where you would normally be doing more damage with the heavy barrel at medium range. This, you're doing less damage. At longer range engagements, you're really not going to notice a difference because you're still hitting that minimum cap, but at medium range combat, you're going to notice a difference. So something that's nice about the Suppressor is that you get a nice recoil reduction when using it. This is the same thing as it was in the previous build, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of players used it before the patch. I still don't think it makes up for a lot of these changes that I'm going to go over here in a second, but it's still a nice aspect of using the Suppressor. You are also going to get a hipfire penalty when you use the silencer. It's just like the heavy barrel. There is more weight at the end of the gun, and that's going to increase the bullet spread when you are firing from the hip. Now, one of the largest changes and probably one of the biggest nerfs to the attachment is now that the aimed accuracy bonus of the Suppressor is going down from 50 to 25%. So essentially this means that you are not going to be as effective at taking out those medium to long range targets. What DICE has effectively done here is making the Suppressor a close quarter attachment. You're going to want to be very stealthy. You're going to want to get the jump on your enemy, trying to work your way around the map so that you can get into close quarter engagements so that you can take them out. Going for those medium to long range shots will be difficult, and it's going to really make players change the way they approach a map when using this attachment. Oh, and I should probably mention the Suppressor keeps you off the minimap. That's probably the best thing about this thing and why you would want to use it. Alright, moving on to the Bipod, which has gotten a lot of changes and a lot of buffs, and what they've done is to increase the recoil reduction when you're using the Bipod with the assault rifles and the carbines. I'm still not really sure why you would want to use a Bipod with the assault rifles and the engineer kit. It just doesn't seem like those have enough ammunition to lock down a location, but if you want to go that route, you are more than welcome to, and DICE is giving you every opportunity with this most recent buff to help you out. But one of the largest buffs to the attachment is that it now takes less time to deploy it and go through the animation, from 40 to 50% faster. And that's a significant increase, and one of the main reasons why I never used the Bipod, because I always felt like I was leaving myself open to enemy fire, and for the most part, you normally were. You would have to camp in locations, and the only way to use this thing effectively was to camp, because if you tried to move around a lot, you were always very clumsy. It would take like an hour and a half to place this thing down on the ground. So having the animation time quickened makes this thing a much more viable attachment, in my opinion, and it's going to allow you to be much more mobile. One last thing about the Bipod is that the assault rifles and the carbines now get the aimed accuracy and the recoil benefits when you're not aiming down the sights. This is basically putting it in line with the LMGs, which had it in the previous build, and it's just basically putting it in line with the light machine guns. So the next attachment we're going to be taking a look at is the Foregrip, and this thing has gotten nerfed slightly. Everyone used it before the patch because there really wasn't any negative aspect or really any consequence for using it. It essentially just decreased the horizontal recoil of every single weapon, so it was basically a win-win no matter what way you looked at it. But in the most recent patch, there really hasn't been many changes to that aspect of the Foregrip. They have done some slight tweakings to a couple of the weapons, but there really isn't. You're really not going to notice much of a difference. But what they have done to the attachment is that you now get a small long-range accuracy penalty when using it. So really what the DICE is trying to do here is to make this a more close quarter attachment, much like the Suppressor. You are really not going to want to go for long-range shots. You're going to want to keep the fight up close and personal so that you can take full advantage of the Foregrip attachment. They have also made some changes to the laser sight, but really nothing significant. What they've done is to give a slight bonus, a little bit more bonus for using this attachment when firing from the hip. Some weapons are going to see a larger bonus, others are going to see less of an advantage, but all in all, every weapon when using the laser sight is going to see an increase in hip fire accuracy. What they have done though is that for some of the personal defense weapons, if you are crouched and prone, you no longer are more accurate than if you are aiming down sight. Kind of ridiculous, but as you guys can probably tell in this video, you can still be extremely accurate when using the red dot sight with some of the personal defense weapons, and it still makes for some really fun and exciting gameplay when you're just kind of mowing people down, firing from the hip. So if you like the laser sight, it's going to get a buff, or it has gotten a buff, and it's now more effective. The final attachment we're going to be looking at is the Flash Suppressor, and this thing has seen a significant buff in the most recent patch. DICE has made it a recoil compensator, so you are going to get a huge reduction in vertical recoil. DICE has also made it so that the Flash Suppressor no longer reduces accuracy, which was one of the main drawbacks of using it in the previous build. You will get a small hip fire accuracy penalty when using the attachment though. Just like the silencer and the heavy barrel, there is some more weight at the end of the gun, which makes it more difficult to hip fire. But overall, I really like the changes to the Flash Suppressor. If you are having difficulty keeping on target, you're having difficulty managing the vertical recoil, try out the Flash Suppressor. It has gotten a huge buff, and I think you're going to enjoy the changes. But yeah, so that's it for the changes to the attachments in the most recent patch. Like I said, in the near future, I'm going to be making a video that goes over and highlights a lot of the attachment combinations, such as the Foregrip and the Suppressor, and just kind of go over why you would want to use those in different situations, what's the benefits of using it, what are the negatives of using it. So that's going to be coming up in the near future. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for more videos. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.